Mr. Yes We Can, who didn't intend to for working class and poor Black folks, came out of his slick, corporate, neoliberal, respectability lined mouth with more evidence of his clear class hatred in an interview on the Snapchat political show Good Luck America, which is hosted by Peter Hanby. Now, master Black political gatekeeper Obama said that political candidates lose support when they use snappy slogans like defund the police, jeopardizing their chances for achieving meaningful police reforms, of which there are none, just so we're clear, because you cannot reform an institution that was formed to maintain oppression and inequality and continues to operate on those principles. But I digress. Back to Mr. Snappy Hope and Change that we didn't get. Obama went further to say, quote, the key is deciding, do you want to actually get something done, or do you want to feel good among the people you already agree with? End quote. Oh, that's rich, Barry. What exactly did you get done with this whole issue of racist police terrorism and abuse during your 8 years in office? Well, he passed the Blue Alert Law in 2015 that required instant nationwide blue alerts to warn about threats to police officers and help track down the suspects who carried them out. Not like the police ever needed help catching people who posed a threat to them, even if they actually didn't. But Obama signed a bill into law establishing this national blue alert system anyway. But did he sign any police reforms into law that he's chastising supporters of defund the police about making it more difficult to get done? I mean, was it his catchy slogan, hope and change, that made it impossible for him to do more than establish the task force on 21st century policing, which did recommend that police killings be investigated by independent prosecutors, and it did establish the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, or COPS, a program that assessed police departments with troubled records of community engagement and was supposed to work with them on voluntary reform efforts. But none of the recommendations from Obama's task force were backed up by law, and not one of them were requirements for any police department to actually follow. And if there are no requirements, then there are no repercussions for when the recommendations are ignored, which most police departments did. And while people love to point out that Trump eliminated many of Obama's reforms that didn't really change the nature of policing in our communities, they ignore that Mr. Hope and Change played a typical political sleight of hand by issuing Executive Order 13688, which created a federal interagency group to investigate police militarization and come up with recommendations. When it comes to us, this man loved himself some recommendations, didn't he? Anyway, as a result of this investigation, a list of equipment that was prohibited from being transferred to the police from the Department of Defense was developed, a list that was pretty doggone short. The Department of Defense couldn't give police departments bayonets, tracked armored vehicles, firearms, and ammunition for 50 caliber or higher weapons, grenade launchers, camouflage uniforms, and weaponized aircraft. But here's the thing. When a further investigation of the kinds of equipment police were already getting from the Department of Defense was done, the Defense Logistics Agency data showed that none of the aircraft given to police departments from the DoD were actually weaponized. Most of the armored vehicles that were transferred from the DoD to police departments ran on wheels and not tracks. And the whole thing with this executive order that people made such a big deal about Obama doing so much with was really just a publicity stunt to make it look like Obama was addressing an issue that arose from the streets, the militarization of the police, when in fact he was playing a shell game with people's lives. It's true that Trump lifted Executive Order 13688, but that too was a publicity stunt to make it seem as if Trump was restoring something that Obama ended. The executive order didn't even apply to that many police departments in the first place. It only covered 300 police departments. In fact, According to an investigation conducted by In These Times, not only did the much-hyped executive order banning certain equipment through the 1033 program not do anything to stop the delivery of military equipment to state and local police departments, but more equipment was actually delivered in the year following the ban. The total value of military equipment transferred from the DoD to police departments rose from $418 million in fiscal year 2015 to $494 million in fiscal year 2016. So a year after the Ferguson uprisings in 2014, which was touched off by the racist police killing of Michael Brown, when Black demonstrators against the systemic racist police abuse they suffered for years were confronted with military tanks, rubber bullets, and tear gas on the streets of their neighborhoods in Ferguson, Missouri, Mr. Yes We Can was able to find a way to pass a law to help cops after the killing of 2 cops in Dallas, which was a very isolated incident that got all kinds of presidential attention and legislative action, but he couldn't find a way to pass a law to help protect people from the racist and heavily militarized cops after they killed a young man in a city that the police had been terrorizing for decades. I wonder if his snappy slogans were the reason he couldn't do that. And don't miss that this interview, during which Obama said this, was done on Snapchat, a platform that a whole lot of youngins are glued to. I am not, because I am not one of those youngins. We know what this is, though. It's Obama training the next generation of young voters to fall in line with the classist, respectability-driven liberal ideology, neoliberal ideology, toe the party line of the Democratic Party. Don't get too loud, work within the system, seek reform, and not revolution. Your benevolent big brother Barry said so. I mean, look at what it got me. That's what Obama is saying and doing. He is doing the outreach to the youth that Uncle Jim Clyburn couldn't do because ain't nobody gonna watch his Snapchat interview. But too many of us still love ourselves some Obama. And too many Black people who gave that man more money when they bought another one of his books are already defending his comments, saying that he's right. And you can't live in the neighborhoods where we need the police to deal with violence and talk about defunding the police. But these are usually the same people who don't show up for any of the political education sessions that are held by organizations in these very same communities that have been talking about these issues for years. So rather than have the conversation with people about what these demands and phrases and terms and words mean, Obama stands would rather legitimize his approach of talking and explaining policy to white people, that's fine, while shoving respectability and dismissive finger wagging at Black people, all while claiming the ideas he doesn't want to talk about won't work. So the argument that what's being asked for is too unreasonable to even have a conversation about then becomes the cover for the nothing that was going to be done all along. So Obama just used Snapchat to blame Black people for our own continued abuse by the police by claiming that we're asking for something too unreasonable and unpopular to even talk about. And this extends to working class, poor, and oppressed people in other groups who are also demanding to defund the police as well. And Obama is doing this again, because isn't this what he's always done when it came to the working class, poor, and oppressed masses and our concerned? Too many folks who still don't see Obama as the class traitor that he is are going right along with it, though, which makes it impossible for them to see themselves as the class traitors that they are. Follow Luke Mon Nation on patreon.com, Luke Mon Nation, for lots of great content.